Here, I see Jim, Rhonda, Steve, Rob Words, Rob Mann, and of course, I'm here. So it is now 7:01 p.m. and we'll call this meeting to order. The record will show that all 6 of us are here. First, second item on the agenda is approval of minutes. And we're in a regular meeting, so we've got a number of minutes to approve here. The first one is the regular meeting of February 18th. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll move that we approve the minutes of February 18th.
So Steve's got the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ron has got the second. Any changes to those minutes?
I do, Aaron. I had a couple of minor changes, please.
Go ahead.
In section 7, at the end, it said that he will research a little deeper into that situation. I think that was referring to me with regard to the bulky waste at the transfer station. I think the appropriate line would have been that Orla will research it, or Orla will be getting more data. She was going to start separating out the income coming in so that she could match it accordingly with the expenses for the bulky waste.
That would be my
Alright.
recollection as well, Rob.
Dottie, if you could make note of that, please.
And then in section 11, kind of along the same lines, it said that, I don't have the printout, but it was speaking to, sorry, just bear with me for a minute.
I have it, Rob, if you want me to read
Yeah,
it.
it said that I'll research, then electronically distribute detailed transfer station data from last year to determine if the fee schedule is perfectly appropriate. That was not my intention. What I'd like to do is take the information that Orla gathers and have a recommendation come forward. Basically, the basic question we're looking to answer is, are the bulky waste fees appropriate or not? And that's not really up to me to decide. I think it's more to get the data and then make a recommendation. They're either good the way they are, or they need to be increased or decreased or, adjusted.
Dottie, if you could make note of that too, please. Any other changes to these minutes?
Don't have a change, but just would make a note. I think I don't have the minutes in front of you. I think it was section 11 as well, about having the Zoom meeting link on the agenda that's on the town website. I think it was missing this month as well. That may be why I see only 16 people at our meeting today. I may be wrong, but I don't think it's on there for this meeting. I don't know if that's a FOIA issue or not, but.
I believe it's been added. It was added before the time of the meeting. I
Okay.
can double check though. This is Amy St. Ange.
As of this afternoon, it wasn't on there, I don't believe.
All right. Thank you for making note of that, Steve. We would definitely want to stay in compliance with Connecticut Freedom of Information.
That's not a change to the minutes of that meeting, just a comment about them.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Not a change to the minutes of February 18th. Any other changes to the minutes of February 18th? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as presented along with the changes that were described by Rob Words, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? That passes 6-0. So then we go on to March 3rd. That's the walkthrough at the Department of Public Works. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes. It wasn't an official meeting because we didn't have a quorum, but we still produced minutes for it. So I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Well, Aaron, I was going to ask if, again, if it wasn't a meeting, do we approve them? But I'll make the motion if that's what you'd like us to do.
Thank you. I feel like the belt and suspenders approach is probably the way to go. So Steve's got the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Jim's got the second. Any changes to these minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting as presented, signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Carries 6-0. Next is March 4th, budget presentations. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Make that motion, Aaron.
Rob Werge has the motion.
I'll second it.
Steve's got the second. Any changes to those minutes? Any changes? All right, hearing none. All in favor of accepting the March 4th minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? That carries 6-0. Then finally, March 11th budget workshop. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make the motion.
Rhonda's got the motion. Was that Jim? Was that Jim?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll
so
second it.
Rhonda's got the motion. Jim's got the second. Any changes to those minutes? Hearing none. All in favor of accepting those minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? That carries 6-0. So we'll move on to item 3, which is correspondence. And then after that, Christopher King, you'll be up. I know, well, we want to get to you promptly. So under correspondence, I believe Ken Beausoleil, he sent a letter that went to my email, and I believe the rest of you got it today. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's not on here because this would have been submitted to the town clerk a couple of days ago. But correspondence that's listed here, March 2nd, letter, Superintendent of Schools, Board of Ed budget proposal, fiscal year 19 to 20 audit report, Board of Ed proposed budget FY 20 to 21, combined budget proposal from Board of Selectmen, March 24 memo of a proposed budget public comment question email address has been established at the following email address, budget@thompsonct.org. And then finally, March 12th, town clerk memo, budget request funds to scan vital records /minutes. And as I mentioned, we received a letter by email from Ken Beausoleil today. Any other correspondence that we may have received that I'm forgetting here that is not recorded here?
We did receive, and I don't know if it's included in what you said, the Public Works position. Oh, that was in, yeah, a description of that
Okay,
for the new position.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
do you recall, Rhonda, who that came from?
Amy, they believe it came from Amy.
I don't know. off the
I believe
top
it
of
came
my
from
head.
Amy.
Okay. All right, so we'll make note of that. Dottie, if you're not able to locate where that came from, let me know and we'll dig through our emails and make sure that it definitely came from Amy.
Yeah, and this is Amy St. Ange. It did come from me. I forwarded it from Rich Benoit.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other items of correspondence? So we'll move on to item 4 of the agenda, which is the 2019 to 2020 audit report presentation by King and Associates. Christopher, I'm assuming that you're the person who's going to be leading the discussion on this one.
Yes, I am. Also, we have Marshall Dean also with us here, and I'm going to share what we generally do. We did this even before COVID, is we prepare a set of slides, and generally would print them and hand them out at the meeting, and people could each have a copy and write notes in them. But I'm going to share it. And go through this. It is tied into the full audit report, and I have that in front of me, so we can, if we need to, we can either stop and discuss certain parts as we go through, or go back. After I get to the end, I can hand it back to the board chair, and you can entertain questions. So this is our first year with the town of Thompson. We came in, I'd say, a little late in the process. You had gone out to RFP a couple times. We noticed that we were concerned that we would not be able to finish you by December 31st, but after seeing your proposals go out a few times, we contacted the town and explained what our timeline would be for this year, and submitted our proposal. So we're thankful that you accepted us. And I think, considering the timeline, you still got filed pretty timely. As of today, there are still over 20 towns in the state that are not filed. So more than 10% of the towns are still on extension. You were filed by the end of February. And there's been at least 6 or 7 already filed in March. So again, these page numbers refer to the full audit report. We start at page 13 generally because the first sections are very condensed. They're called the government-wide statements, and the information is so consolidated that it's hard for people to pick out any detail. And it isn't kind of a unique presentation. They're also full accrual, so they reflect depreciation and long-term debt. When we get to page 13, we're now in the fund financial statements, which is on a different basis of accounting. It's the modified accrual basis. It's a little more current basis, more of what's going to be paid for with this year's taxes. It doesn't include your debt service payments for the next 10 years because those are going to be financed with taxes assessed and collected in future years. On page 13, your general fund balance is $1.8 million. And that is broken down into a couple different pots. Some of it is assigned, some of it's unassigned. The Government Finance Officers Association has a benchmark of 2 months of your revenues kept in surplus, which would be 16.67%. Your general fund balance using that benchmark calculation is 7.1%. I will say another benchmark is the debt rating agencies. They use 12 to 15%, but they would also include your capital reserve fund balance. So if you went to page 13 and added up your general fund and your capital reserve fund balance, you would be over 12%. So you would be in that 12 to 15% range for bond rating from the rating agencies. You did have a page 15 is the summary of the revenues and expenses in the general fund, the capital fund. And there was a current year deficit. And that was because you did have a large transfer of funds into the capital projects that was budgeted for the year. Then we go right into page 20 and 21. This is your pension fund, the assets for your pension fund. You are very highly funded, unusually highly funded. A lot of, the national average is in the mid 70s, 73 to 75%. Page 20 and 21, agency funds. These are the funds that they're town accounts, but you certainly can't use them for paying the bills. They're money that's held for other groups or other purposes, and you're pretty much collecting, holding it, and then dispersing it for them. There is a new GASB statement, GASB 84, that is going to be effective next year. That will change some of the reporting, so it will change formats.
Still hungry?
Chris, hold on a second.
Sure.
Amy or Dottie or someone are you able to figure out where that background noise is coming from and mute that person by chance?
I believe I did.
Great, thank you, Amy. Go ahead, Chris.
Sure. Now, page 34, we are in the notes to the financial statements, and page 34 has a schedule. It shows the changes in your long-term liabilities. It has your bond debt, your bonded debt. It also has personnel-related liabilities. So it has your pension liabilities. It has these OPEB liabilities, which are, the OPEB liabilities are a measure of, it's the other post-employment benefits, and it's related to retiree health insurance options that they have. What we're finding is that, at least in the towns in Connecticut, they're paying down their bonds, and their personnel liabilities are becoming to be a more significant percentage of their total overall liabilities. You did have one big pay down because you were buying into the MERS plan, the state pension plan, and you've paid that off. So that was about $400,000 reduction that you had in this past year, $427,000. But your OPEB liability, which is calculated by actuaries, that increased $696,000. And they are constantly tweaking those, and we're seeing them go up. And I believe it's as they track health insurance trends on the premiums. We also show on page 35 how much you're paying off in the next next 5 years individually. So you're paying off over $800,000 of these of bonded debt and loans each year. Then there are extensive disclosures on pensions and OPEB liabilities, including the certified teachers plan. And sometimes people are interested in to know what that is. So currently the town has no responsibility for funding those certified teacher plans. So in the notes, it shows the total liability allocated to the town of, in your case, 30.9 million, of which you're currently responsible for none of that. The certified teachers also have a health insurance benefit plan through the state that the state funds. The liability of allocated to your town is 4.8 million. Again, you're not currently responsible for any of that. After the notes, we generally have detailed, well, the schedules are more detailed. The further you go back in the audit, the more detail you see. So in the front, where there's a combined column called non-major funds, after the notes, all those funds are listed separately. You have detailed budget schedules, shows the original budget as adopted, the amended budget, and the actual results next to that. Also, you have multi-year trend tables on the retirement plans, even the state ones for which you have no liability. Then you get near the back and you have on page 75 your schedule of taxes levied, collected, and outstanding. At the end of the year, you had $1 million of taxes that were still outstanding and receivable, 6% of your current levy. We have our own little benchmark that we have built through our experience, and we generally see that between 3 to 8% is usually the norm. So you are in the middle of that 3 to 8% range. If it gets above 8% on delinquent taxes, we start to modify our testing, and we'll look and try to see what's behind that rising rate. But as I mentioned, you're within that 3 to 8%. I mentioned earlier a new GASB statement that's coming out. It was going to be for this past fiscal year. Everything got delayed a year with COVID. So these agency funds on page 74, we'll have to evaluate, and it won't change how you account for them internally, but it will change how they're presented in your audit report. So a lot of the school funds, student activity funds, you're collecting those for the students. It's really in and out. So that'll be called a custodial fund. Building bonds would go into the general fund, or looking at your list, I'm not sure if you'll have any that are going to be reclassified to a special revenue fund or a different type of fund. So it's going to be a name change, presentation change, nothing you'll have to do internally. So that's the core financial audit. We also do state and federal single audits, which are compliance audits. They're very similar, but one's focused on state grants and one's on federal grants. Actually, I think I was going to have Marshall kind of step in. Were you going to come in at this point, Marshall, or were you going to wait for findings?
I can do the findings if you want.
All right, I'll get this page then. So for state single audit, you had 9.2 million of state grants that were spent. The vast majority of those were related to education through the ECS and the special ed excess cost. We did have some findings. I'll let Marshall get into that. Federal single audit, $900,000. And again, the vast majority of it was education related. Those are often referred to as pass-through grants, but they're also the cafeteria grants. So the cafeteria grants are school nutrition. Then you have Title I, Title II, and all those federal pass-through grants. So, and in each of those single audit reports is where you will find our findings. We also have a management letter. We'll talk about that, but I'll let Marshall start here by going through the findings that are actually in the single audit reports.
Okay, so basically page 9 and page 10, page 9 of the federal single audit and page 10 of the state single audit, there's a finding related to budgeting. For the BOE specifically, there was an overage. There's a state statute related to how much can be related to overage of expenditures for them. Same with, I think you guys have also some ordinances as well for budgeting purposes, but basically the BOE line, I believe, was 160,000 over budgeted. So that basically becomes a significant deficiency for the audit, which then is reported in the state and federal single audits. It's also compliance with the financials as well. But there was also a prior year material weakness related to, I believe, some adjustments that were made and maintenance of general ledger and stuff like that. We felt, Orla kind of took care of it. It wasn't really, for them, I think it was just more of it was material in a sense, but depending on which auditor is kind of handling it, they can kind of see what the adjustments related to. So we felt that that was corrected, which you can see on the next page after the findings. It says that one's corrected, but the budgetary one was repeated. The budget one last year was related, I think, to something with buses or something like that, but that was kind of, I think, a one-time incident. And hopefully same with the budget for the BOE, just got to make sure that you're in compliance for that. And that's what's reported on the state and federal single audits. And then with the audit itself, we have a management letter, which basically pertain to things that came to our attention that may not be material in nature, but we still feel management should be aware of them. We also have some verbal ones that may not be related, described in the management letter, but we felt also, should be discussed with management. So just on the PowerPoint, you can see the review of payroll. We just feel that, Orla should review the payroll once it's completed. Maybe sign off on it just to make sure that there is oversight over the payroll. I can't think of her name, but Maureen, is that what you said? Let's see,
Paula.
Paula.
Thank you. When Paula does the payroll, she basically does it by herself to a point, and she enters it and everything like that and submits it. We just feel there should be a little bit more oversight with that, with signature at the end from Orla would be great. The review of bank reconciliations, when we were reviewing the bank reconciliations, we did find a few errors related to the bank reconciliations or misposting of a journal entry that skewed that number to for the book balance. So we just feel that if somebody, maybe Paula, could review the bank rec at the end to make sure it ties back to the book balance, just to make sure everything is reconciled correctly. The other one was school readiness. When we were doing our testing, we had to test that for the state single audit. And we found that there was some issues with how much you guys are allowed to charge. There's a state sliding scale related to that. And I know there's a company that handles it, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, but they are the ones that actually are handling the paperwork and everything like that for Bob. and they, I guess, used the incorrect sliding scale when reporting the amount that was acceptable to charge the parents. And, we came across that, we let Bob know, and Bob should have just a little bit more oversight on that, just to make sure that is the correct amount charged, because that is a state compliance with that, but it wasn't material per se to the audit. It's just obviously a lack of control over that. And those are tested based on the risk and materiality of them. So we may or may not have to test it next year. We probably will. But that kind of, we'll be able to check on that at that point. And then there was 2 verbal comments, one related to fixed asset listing. When we were reviewing the fixed asset listing, we noticed that there wasn't really a lot of disposals or activity per se. We just feel that there just needs to be a little bit more management over the fixed assets, either at year end or during the year, just maybe shipping out the list to each department, having them review their sections, making sure if there's any assets that are disposed of or being replaced, that they make Orla aware that they're gone, or if there's a new one that she's not aware of. We also do testing. We do a search for fixed assets within the expenditures to see if there's other assets as well. But it's best practice to kind of have you guys do that in the first place, to review for fixed assets and disposals, just for better reflection of the town and what you guys have. And the last one was certificates of correction, which go through the assessor's office. I spoke with them. There is an assistant and an assessor. So they are aware that when one person is creating the correction, there should be somebody reviewing it afterwards. Anybody in that position, could make a correction for their best friend and let it go through. We just feel that there should be somebody else just signing off. It's a good thing that they have 2 people in that department. Sometimes it's hard when there's only one assessor, and we try to ask the tax collector, but they're too busy, or the first selectman to just review them. They might not know what it is, where this department does have 2 people. So this should be just an easy fix for them, just having the, if one person's doing the correction, the other person can review it and approve it just with the signature, which just shows record of, responsibility and approval. And I believe that was it for any comments that we had. I'll just double check to see if there's any other verbal that.
Yeah, so there's different levels. The ones in the single audit reports are the most significant that we've determined. The management letter are a lower level, but we think still should be reported. The payroll and the bank recs are pretty much related to controls. School readiness came up when we were doing grant testing. And then verbal comments, we put them in here because people always ask us, what is it that you saw that you didn't put in writing? So we include them in this report, just so you know that there are always, or often sometimes, issues that we discuss with people in town hall, just things to work on, but that don't necessarily raise to the level of a written finding.
Yep, and that was it for any comments that we had for the year that that I have. So.
So then that brings us to the end. That was, the audit in a nutshell, along with our findings and recommendations from our first year of going through. So at this point, normally I would hand it back over to the chair, and we're here for whatever you want to, how you want to proceed from here on.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the auditors? Any questions about this audit report?
Aaron, Rob Wurge, I have 2 quick questions.
Go ahead.
First, for Christopher, on when you spoke about the outstanding tax receivable, about 6.1%, that was as of June 20th of 2020. I thought at that point we had pushed out our tax collections, which may have spilled actually into July or August, but maybe Orla could comment. Is that 6% about normal for us, or was it exacerbated a bit due to the later collections of taxes?
It was a little bit higher, but we usually are around 5 or 6% anyway.
Okay, perfect. And then just another question. I think when Marshall was talking about the fixed asset register, and in terms of best practices, I mean, if that's not depreciated like assets would be in a private sector and flowing through the P&L, are there any best practices around how to manage that? Because that could get quite cumbersome if it's not managed, right? If you get a few years back, I can kind of envision a pretty big project with new stuff not being put on and disposals not being recorded on a go-away basis. So are there any kind of best practices that would help us get that?
Yeah, I'm going to roll back to your first question first on the tax collector. I did talk to the tax collector. Particularly, I've been polling tax collectors on their experience with the deferrals that different towns provided their taxpayers, and he said that really, and certainly shortly after year end, they had really good collections, and that he was not experiencing any higher rates of outstanding taxes due to that deferral. A lot of towns I had seen said that they were behind in July, August, September, but had caught up by October, and he thought he was doing even better than that. And I think in particular there may have been a $67,000 back tax collection or something that happened in the summer. So and then fixed assets. Fixed assets is a pretty common area. You don't budget depreciation, but there is depreciation in those first set of statements that I skipped over. You are required by GASB, the governmental standing boards, to do this reporting and tracking of your fixed assets and depreciation. And it, like I said, it is an area that we often have a comment on. Now, I'll kick it back to Marcia and Orla. Are you guys are doing it in-house, tracking it in-house?
Yeah, so we are. So there is an add-on to Munis that we use for fixed assets, but it's very inefficient. So assets are pretty much tracked in an Excel spreadsheet, and then an entry is plugged into the system at the end of the year. It's been quite a few years before we've really gone down. I think we're reasonably close on disposals at the town hall, but I really need to go back to the school, particularly in relation to IT equipment, because it's such a huge part of the assets at the school, being such the school population. So that's really one that I definitely need to take a look at and definitely bring that more up to date. And yes, in relation to the vehicles, but yeah, it's been, fixed assets tend to be the least of my priority when it comes to year end, because it's not a huge big job, but it is very manual driven. And we haven't, we have our threshold, anything over 5,000, we don't appreciate anything below that. But yeah, it's going to be one of those tasks, right, Marshall? By the time Justin takes a look at it the next time round, hopefully it'll be less than 12 pages.
And it also requires the cooperation of a lot of departments. The
Yes.
highway department, like as mentioned, the schools. So other people, other department heads need to cooperate.
Absolutely.
And sometimes
That's for sure.
sometimes the finance department can't get responses from everybody, and they're chasing them. So
Yeah,
Surprisingly, I think the highway department is pretty current, though. Over the years, the person who's been in that position of public works director has typically let me know when he scrapped specific vehicles. So that's been helpful for me to know that I need to dispose of them. But I'm not so sure on some of the other stuff.
Well, Orla, you can make it quite simple that new assets don't get added until their portion of the register is clean.
That's true.
Because it does take all departments, and it's important. It's a risk item. So
Yeah, you're not getting anything new until you dispose of something first.
that's all I had, Aaron. And thank you, Marshall and Christopher. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob. Any other questions about this report or questions for the auditor?
I had a couple of comments in relation to those bank reconciliation reviews and payroll review. I think one of the challenges that our town has is because we're a small team, internal controls is always going to be a little bit of a challenge. But I do like the idea of the payroll review. I'm pretty sure that Bob already does it at the Board of Ed level. And at the town level, it'll be a simpler process to have Paul and I involved in that process. The bank rec, Paul and I have been back and forth on this and how we're going to do it moving forward. I really want to be careful of controls because she has a lot of involvement in processing checks within our town level. So I don't think she would be the best person to review a bank rec where she's the one who's generating all the checks. But that's where Amy's going to come into it. And I've mentioned to Amy that we could probably split that process between Amy and Paula to keep some level of control, but definitely have an extra person looking at it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, it's basically just a separation we're looking for. If one person's completing it, one person's reviewing it, that's great. I know Paula, if she's doing the whole submission of the bank reconciliation into Muni, and you're, doing another portion of it, yeah, Amy might be the best person to kind of do the final look over. But yeah, we were just trying to throw, if you're completing it, and then Paula can get it back and look at it, that may not be the best control, but at least it's another eye in a sense.
Exactly.
So, maybe it's not the
But
best.
the activity in the Board of Ed is much more activity than the town level. And Paula is the ideal person to help oversee that bank rec because none of the activity is done by her.
Okay.
So
Yep.
that was an easy one.
Anything else? Any other questions? Any other comments? All right, well, thank you so much to King and Associates for joining us this evening and presenting this report.
Thank you for having us.
You've been great to work with, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
I was gonna wait until they got off the call before I said that.
All right, good night.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Yep. Bye.
So we held off with citizens' comments until this point because we wanted to make sure that the auditors had the opportunity to present their report and then log off because they have a life. So we wanted to give them first priority. So now we move on to section 5 of the agenda, which is citizens' comments. Is there any citizen that has a comment at this time? And it is budget season, so I ask people if you do have a comment to please keep it to a total of 3 minutes for all of your comments. Is there any citizen who has a comment at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to Selectmen's update. First Selectman, Amy St. Ange.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to begin my update tonight with some results. I know I had shared with the board results from the SALT study that was put together by Wayne Bugden from One Earth Environmental. Rich Benoit and I met with him as well as our attorney Ken Slater to discuss the findings of that report. And the good news is that Wayne believes that, or from the data that he's retrieved, he says that in the last 6 to 7 years, he sees no evidence of an increase in the salt content, the salt levels within the water, the well fields of Connecticut water. We have some best practices that we want to continue to follow. Our intention is that we will be petitioning the Connecticut Department of Transportation to institute some low salt application areas, which would include parts of Route 200 and parts of 395, both obviously state roads, to protect these well fields. And Wayne is going to be doing some additional testing on the site just to gather additional data before he makes some final recommendations for us to follow. So it's good news. We're positive. Again, we want to continue following best practices. We want to protect our water sources and protect the public. Today, I did tour the anaerobic digester at Fort Hill Farms. It is fully up and operational. It's very exciting for the Orr family. And it was very interesting to really see it in action and really understand how this energy is being produced. It's a great time for them, and I know they're excited. So it was great to see it fully operational. I was also privileged, thanks to our fire marshal, Jamie Sine, to tour the Mason House today. And all I can say is what a gem, what an addition to our community. And it's got a long way to go, but what an amazing restoration that has been. And I was lucky to tour it. I will say that Jamie has been extremely active in guiding them to make sure that they're following code so that this is an entirely safe bed and breakfast. And so he's there quite often. And typically David Eddy is kind of like, oh no, Jamie Sine's here. Because he has been quick to point out issues and make sure that they're following regulation and code to the T. So again, I was privileged to be able to tour that, and I can't wait to see the finished product. Additionally, a few weeks back, we received a call from Melinda Smith at Town Hall, and I think it was March 2nd, March 2nd, I believe, when they were doing the vaccinations at the school, and she invited the Town Hall employees. They had extra vaccinations, so any Town Hall employee who needed to get their vaccination, their first shot, they were able to go up to the school, and they accommodated every single employee of the town that needed a vaccination. And they all have dates for their second shot. So that was a really great day. And I'm grateful that the school invited us to participate and utilize that resource. Some upcoming events. We have a virtual trivia night coming up on March 27th. That's hosted by the Recreation Department. The public does have to sign up in advance. Additionally, there is the Easter Bunny Parade on that same day. Annual roadside cleanup will be beginning the end of March, and it will continue through the entire month of April. And then lastly, we have the Maker Fair coming up on May 1st. Sure to be a really great time for the community to come out and and just participate in a fair where people are selling their handmade items, and there'll be music, and hopefully we're moving beyond COVID, and things will start to return to normal this year. So that's what I have to report at this point.
Thank you, Amy. Any questions for the first selectman?
I have a question for the first selectman.
Go ahead, Jim.
I was reading over the groundwater report that we received, and on page 25, there was a sentence that just wanted to share this with everybody. It says, if a new salt storage facility is planned, the town should consider alternative locations outside of the drainage basins of the public water supply. It says, several such locations may be available where there is no risk of impacting the well field or private drinking water. So they're basically saying there's a couple other locations in town where we would consider possibly putting the salt shed. Is that what I gather out of that, or?
It's what you've gathered, but it was a concern that we raised with Wayne Bugden, and he said he prematurely had made that suggestion because it would be a best practice. However, honestly, we don't see another location that would necessarily be viable unless you were to move the entire public works garage to a new site. So that's why that's part of the reason Wayne's going to do some additional testing and additional data. He's going to gather some additional data so he can really make a better recommendation for us. And like I said, the biggest piece that we took away is that there has not been an increase in salt levels. So our best practices that we've been following seem to be working.
Well, thanks for clearing that up.
Okay. Thank you for pointing it out. That definitely stood out to us as well.
Go ahead, Steve.
If I might, there was another comment in the salt report as well. The comment was that the sort of the best thing we can do to minimize salt contamination of our wells was the road salting application. You mentioned the state. Are there anything the town itself is going to do differently, or are we already doing the right things, or can you help
No,
me out?
absolutely. Richard Benoit and I did discuss that, and certainly they are aware, and they have made some modifications to their salt application as well, considering location of well fields, et cetera.
Thank you.
Rob Mann, Board of Finance.
Go ahead, Rob.
I have a question. It's kind of, it's unrelated to the salt shed itself, but I know that some towns don't even use salt. They use other chemicals. Has that even been looked at by the town of Thompson?
Well, I don't know that answer.
Okay.
Rich is in the meeting. I'm not sure if he's actively participating or if he's just listening in. Let's see.
I'm here.
Okay, could you answer that, Rich? Did you hear Rob Mann's question?
I did. We haven't actually looked into much else aside from the salt program that we have. A lot of towns around us are still using salt sand mix. Unfortunately, that's something that we did use in the past, but we're no longer allowed to due to our MS4 stormwater permit because we're a river town. There are some other options to offset some of the salt possibly that we're looking at. I know right now Putnam is currently testing it's a bio-based, basically kind of like a very finely shredded wood chip that is treated with a light salt coating, and it has some other chemicals in it. So I'm kind of letting them be the guinea pig on that to see what their results with it are. Travis is supposed to kind of let me know this spring. We're supposed to talk about it. He used it on, I believe, 2 roads this winter, over the winter, just to test the difference between that and using the salt and salt sand. So we're definitely looking into that. We are looking at reducing our usage in the area of the garage and the associated neighborhoods near the well field. And we'll continue to try to do whatever we can to make reductions.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the first selectman? Okay, thank you, Amy.
You have a good evening.
Next item is school district update. Superintendent of Schools, Melinda Smith. Welcome, Melinda. I think you are muted. Your little icon, your little red icon is not on, but for some reason the audio is not coming through. Are you saying that you're going to try to re-log in or something? Or maybe you tap out. There you go. Is that?
This was Amy St. Ange. She may have to log off and log back in. That's happened to me before.
Yeah, because Melinda, your
Can't hear you, Melinda, at the moment.
your little icon is off, meaning you should be able to come through, but for some reason you're not coming through. I don't know what. If my 16-year-old son was here, he could probably figure it out in a jiffy.
I think she will just have to, this is Amy St. Ange. I think she will just have to log off and log back in. It should reboot, hopefully.
Any better, Aaron?
Oh, wonderful. Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
Well, good evening, everyone. Our enrollment at Thompson Public Schools is less one student. We have 946. 406 students at Mary R. Fisher Elementary School, 300 students at Thompson Middle School, and 241 students at Turtle Up Memorial High School. That's down one student. However, behind those numbers, we've had 3 new registrations and 4 withdrawals. We do still have students coming back from the distant learning program, so we're excited about that. We're currently, finally, if you saw our Twitter or Facebook page, our aquaponic farm is up and being built. As you know, we spent last year with the design of that system, and then COVID hit and the whole project went on stall, but we're finally seeing that the farm is coming together. Our goal is to have that up and running and growing things in another month. And I'm very proud of the faculty and staff at Thompson Public Schools. We funded a St. Patty's Day meal for our seniors in town through It Starts at Home and Jill St. Cyr and all her volunteers. So we were pretty excited about that. Just this evening, and my board members don't even know this yet because it was at the very end of the day, the Putnam Rotary gave a very sizable donation to Thompson Public Schools to plan a surprise for our teachers for the district. They donated $845 so that we can plan a surprise as a special thank you from the Rotary for a job well done. So I'm excited to work with my team to figure out what type of surprise we'll be able to bestow upon our teachers. I think that's really wonderful. We are in the process of completing interviews for a new principal at Thompson Middle School. Our current principal, Stephen Knowlton, will retire at the end of the year. The process is ongoing. The next phase is to work with the Board of Education. And then hopefully by the end of April, early May, we'll be making a public announcement on the selection of that new principal. We are currently in the process of doing preschool and kindergarten registration, and we're doing a more aggressive campaign this year, primarily because we have new people that moved into town, but some folks that might have been disconnected to the public schools. So you will see new banners around, new signs around, and Principal Prentice did a spot on Winnie. And thank you to Gary O and WINY because they also matched we purchased 30 spots, and they also matched us free of charge for 30 radio spots. So we're really trying to get out there and get the message out that it's time to register if you have a preschooler or a kindergarten student. And then I've been working with Leslie from the rec department on our summer programs. And tomorrow, the both of us are on a grant webinar to find out if there's any way that we can collaborate and put together a after-school program. There's some funding out there, and we're interested in seeing if we will be a good match for that. So that's about all I have for my report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. Any questions for the superintendent? Any questions? Okay, thank you, Melinda. And thank you so much to the school for sharing those vaccines with the town hall. What a marvelous gesture.
It was a scramble at the end, and we called Amy and she really made it happen, and we're thrilled. And the next shot is March 30th for everyone. Amy, I'll be sending you a schedule for you folks to come on up.
Thank you.
All right, so we will move on to financial report, Finance Director Orla McKiernan Raftery.
Thanks, Aaron. So the first thing I want to start it with is the audit. You know, I shared a lot of my thoughts and comments. It was an easy experience. They committed to filing that report by the end of February. And yes, it was a push at the end, but they filed it. They filed it in time, so there was no additional extension required. So that begs the question as to what we want to do moving forward. I know there was concerns last year with regards to contracting for a 3-year contract, just because we were unsure as to what we were going to get. I wanted to find out and discuss with the board their feelings with regards to moving forward. I know the initial thought was when this was done and dusted, we would go out to RFP again. Do we want to do that? Do we want to take a look at what we have? Do we want to request a pricing for the existing firm that carried out our audit for 2020? The reason why I ask is I don't want to sit in this for long. But, you know, we're already at the 18th of March. And, you know, in theory, the auditing firms in general want to try and get back to their typical normal schedule, which requires a prelim audit during the month of May or June. So I just didn't know whether anybody had any comments. Sorry, I got to give the dog a chew. Come here, Rosie. Okay. We should hear another word from her. I just wondered if anybody had any thoughts. Is it too early to ask this?
Not too early. Thoughts?
How did they do budget-wise, Orla? From what they said? It was-
They were over. I mean, you know, we typically budget about 25,000 on the town side. This particular budget tends to be more focused on the town side than the Board of Ed. In the past, we would typically split the fee. They actually did something a little bit different to firms that have worked with us in the past. They did put the extra dollars on the town side. So our cost of this was 29,900 for the fiscal year 20 budget. Now, obviously, we're going to be over budget because we budgeted 25,000. So
that's on us. What did they say it would cost, and what did they actually charge?
oh, I haven't approached them with regards to moving forward.
No.
They asked me
For the
where we
work,
were
sorry,
going to.
Orla, sorry to interrupt. For the work they already did, he said it would cost $1. Did it cost $1 or did it cost $1.50?
Oh no, it cost $1.
Okay, well, that's good. So they were able to stick to their commitments. It didn't, we're worried about excessive hours and lots of questions back and forth and the meter ticking and ticking. That didn't happen. So they were
It did
financially,
not
they were
happen.
very sound. Okay, thank you.
Yes. No, they had 2 days, 2 periods of time of field work and a little bit in between, but they cranked through it quickly. We got the questions answered quickly and there was no concerns. And I'm not sure how Bob feels, but I know I felt that the whole process went very smoothly.
This is the fourth auditing firm that I've worked with, and you know, they're all a little bit different in what they ask, and some of what they asked for was rather detailed. I mean, everybody's got certain things that they'll focus on, but they were probably one of the easiest auditing, and not. Let me phrase it differently. They were very specific in what they were looking for. I was able to give them what they were looking for right away. You know, there were some things that I had never been asked for before, but I had it to give to them. They were really fairly accommodating. They were in my office 2 times half a day, which is the shortest. It's the shortest. It was certainly less than Bloom, as far as, but they were just as thorough. They went through a lot of materials, a lot of stuff, and I was pretty happy with them.
Go ahead,
Steve, aren't we just plain required to do an RFP for the amount of money we're going to spend on this activity?
So
I don't
we
think-
are, I mean, the policy with the Board of Selectmen is anything over $10,000, we go out to RFP. But we can also request that the Board of Selectmen bypass that bid policy if they choose to do so. So if the Board of Finance were considering that option, we would possibly get pricing from the firm, and then we would approach the Board of Finance, our Board of Selectmen, and ask them to would they be in agreement to bypass the bid policy in this case.
I guess I have a question, which is, let's say we go out to bid, so to speak, and King and Associates bids as well as, you know, 1 or 2 other firms. And let's say King and Associates is not the lowest bidder. Can we say, based on our experience with King and Associates, we liked this firm, we understand they're not the lowest bidder on this particular round, but we've worked with them for a year. We like them. We feel confident that they're worth the money. Whereas this other firm that came in lower, we don't really know as much about them. They're less of a known entity in the state. We want to go with this, this one who maybe came in second lowest. Is that something we can do? We're not obligated to go with the lowest bidder, is it right?
Aaron, I believe that you're correct. You don't have to go with the lowest bidder.
Oh.
But if you have qualified proposals from qualified providers, it's hard to understand why you wouldn't accept the lowest bid from a qualified supplier.
Agreed. And it was a hypothetical question.
I understand.
I would think that if we went out to bid, that King and Associates would bid.
You will.
Because now they have a relationship with us, and it's not just us having a relationship with them. I mean, if they feel as favorably towards us as we do towards them, I can't imagine that they wouldn't bid.
They have so much business in our area. They do. Okay, I can name a couple of towns offhand: Pomfret, Putnam, Brooklyn, Griswold.
They just did an emergency in Preston too. They just did an emergency one in Preston and picked it up, like their auditor just quit and walked away in the middle of an audit. And they picked that one up. I mean, for what they've charged the Board of Ed side of it, I mean, I wouldn't expect anything to be lower than what we paid.
They typically have a cost advantage. Auditors who are incumbent auditors typically have a cost advantage because they already know the systems, know where to find things and so forth. So they typically have, again, from the cost side, they're usually a little bit better off than anybody new coming in. So they have an advantage just out of the blocks.
Yeah, because these guys had to make a couple of referrals, had to contact Bloom. They were doing some of the stuff off of Bloom Shapiro's notes too. So I think it would go I think it would go even smoother next year.
This is Rob. They have a cost advantage, Steve. And in addition to that, there's a time advantage on our side too. I would think that as we use the same auditor years, there's less time investment for our people.
Oh, right. Yeah, both sides. Both sides.
Both sides of that is an advantage. And that could be a reason to Aaron's question that if they're within range but slightly higher, you might say, well, a lot less energy on our side that we could put toward other things, other initiatives.
The standard I always bring to decisions like this, in my mind, is I would call it the post office and transfer station standard, which is if I'm out in front of the post office and I see someone that I know, or I'm at the transfer station, I see someone I know, and they ask me a question about why did you do a 3-year contract with an auditing firm and you didn't even go out to bid? That's a question I can't answer in good conscience. So for me, even if we were to go with King, even if they were not the lowest bidder, I know that if I were to see someone in one of those settings and they would say, why didn't you go with the lowest person? I could say, we have a relationship, we have the advantage of time, we have the advantage of resource. They did a great job. They actually kind of saved us when we didn't have an auditing firm. So I would feel comfortable going out for a bid and then, explaining that to the person at the post office and transfer station. But what I can't explain to them is why we didn't go out to bid. That I just couldn't answer in good conscience. Rhonda, it looks like you got a question.
Yes, and I just wanted to add too, with this firm, like Rob had asked the initial question, they, were going to charge us $1. Did they come in at $1, $1.50? They came in at their true price within that time frame. So that's important to consider as well. But I agree with Aaron. I think we should put it out anyway, just to go through the process and see what the other bidders are. And how much time do we have? That's the thing too, or are we gonna, we want to make sure that we do this in a timely fashion so that we're not in a position like we were last year.
I believe, because obviously Orla had to get up and step away for a moment for some reason, but I remember last year, it was about this time of year that she was talking about going out to bid. And then we went out to bid. I think as a town, we were late going out to bid. I think our first round of going out to bid was like June or something. And then it was later in the summer, I think, is when or July is when we realized we were in trouble. So I would say if we were to move forward now, we're probably in a good zone as far as timing, and it looks like Orla agrees.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry, I had to let the dog out. Yeah, last year was May and then July again. So I already have the documents ready to roll. You know, I can organize it tomorrow.
Yeah, Rob, man, I agree. I think we should go out for RFP and not necessarily to get away from King and King or get away from anybody else, but just to be fiscally responsible and hear what other firms might have to bid. And as Aaron said, we can choose what we choose. You know, we know King and King went well with both Orla and Bob, and we can make a wise decision on what we want to do going forward. Thank you.
Any other thoughts on going out to bid? All right. Looks like everybody's pretty comfortable doing this. So Orla, if you could move forward with that, that'd be great.
I will.
And just please let King and King know that we're going out to bid because we want to make sure that they bid. I mean, we had a good experience with them. I think it's fair to say that we would be happy if they were to bid.
Yeah, I think they will. I think they will. We had a brief conversation about that when they were with us in January, and I said, listen, you know, most likely we'll go out to RFP, but and then it's going to be up to you guys.
Right. Obviously, with the understanding that there's no guarantees, we may not go with them next year, but we certainly would want them to bid because they're a known entity to us now.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, I'll organize that. Okay, the next thing we're going to discuss is first 8 months of financials. I'll be quick because I know we have a lot going on. Property taxes 16.2. We're still lower. You know, our taxes aren't due until April 1st, so we're going to be continuously lower till the end of the fiscal year, but we're 242 lower than we were this time last year on current year taxes. Prior year were higher by 24, interest and liens 10, and motor vehicles, as we already know, were down by 96. We didn't get any state grants relating to the general funds during the month of February. Our local revenue continues to be about 255. And I think I've mentioned to you guys already, Turlough Trust, 225 of that. We do have some declines in fuel reimbursement, preschool tuition, investment interest, but we're offsetting it with increases in town clerk, permits, conveyance, building fees, and transfer station. Expenses committed 6.2 million, and our cash we're down to 19,000 where we were this time last year. Collection month was 219 compared to where we were this time last month. Collection month was in January. At least traditional collection month was in January. A lot of people still did pay. Compared to last year, we're higher by 738,000. I didn't print the surplus sheet, but there's no changes. So we're just going to wrap that into what we have already. A lot of the, you know, just so you know, in relation to where we left last fiscal year, we had so many appropriations during the year for so many different projects. That's really that's how we ended up with a deficit. But in theory, we didn't really end up in a deficit when you look at regular expenses and revenue. But you know, we're going to see a lot of crawl back on some of those expenses. The security grant, we already got some of that back in fiscal 22. Bill Birch mentioned to me today he's going to submit the request for reimbursement for the oil tank replacement because that project is complete too. So we got a couple of things ongoing. So that'll give you an idea. Any questions on the financials? Okay, I'll move on. Okay, thank you, Aaron.
Thanks, Orla. Turtle Up Fund update, Board of Trustees. Does
I think
anyone?
Kathleen's there, right? Tom, is Tom there? Tommy Angelo?
I don't see him.
I don't see Tom.
Oh, Kathleen. Okay, there you go.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
Let me. Video. Hello. Hi. We did have a special meeting. Last night. On the Wednesday. We talked about basically where we were on the windows of the window project. We're coming into phase 2 of the windows. They're here in Connecticut, ready to be installed. The windows of the auditorium have been taken out and are on their way to be restored. We also talked about some of the projects that need to be done for the 1909 building. That is, we're talking about having someone come and look at the 1909 building to have it repointed. That has not been done in 120 years. Portions of it have been done. There have been some selective repointing, and there has been selective work. For example, a lintel broke over a window that has been replaced. But we're looking at some consultant to come out and look at the necessity for it to be repointed. We also need to be ADA compliant by putting in a wheelchair or handicap lift into the Ruscavage Auditorium on the second story. That is going to cost some money. So there are some things besides the windows, which we've appropriated this year, this current fiscal year, $250,000, and the following 2022 year, there's $270,000 in the budget. That'll take care of the window, phase 3 of the window project. And then the windows will be done, but then there's other major restorations to the building that we want to complete or need to complete. We also had a presentation by Tira and Pengesic and Brian Santos on what to do with 65 Main Street, which we will have a meeting on Monday night. Tira is looking into grants to restore that building, and she's looking for funding. These grants require 50% funding. One is the USDA grant. Another is they've changed their name, but basically it's the Historical Society of Connecticut. They will give a grant up to, I believe, I'm not sure the amount. Tara, do you have the amount? I think it's 200,000. So we would have to fund 100,000 of it. The project itself is between 250 to 300,000 to restore the building at 65 Main Street. She's looking to put in incubator businesses on the first floor, and on the second floor an apartment. And we will have a vote on whether the trust will fund up to 50% of that trust of that fund seed money that she needs, or they need, on Monday night at 6 o'clock. Tira, that is correct. No, I'm representing.
Yeah, I mean, substantively, that's correct. The high-end estimate that was worked up by Brian Santos came in around between 240 and 250. The general ask is, yes, would the Turtelot Trust commit to funding up to 50% of the rehab costs? And I am currently preparing a grant for USDA Rural Business Development Program. Just to clarify a little bit, that grant would actually not require any Turtelot Trust funds. I have in-kind match. That's a programming grant. I'm looking for funds from the trust for the rehab portion only. There is another USDA grant, which is the Community Facilities Grant, which I've been advised by my USDA contact is probably a good sort of double whammy, but obviously that is dependent on the vote of the trust. And I got a list of grants as long as my arm that could potentially fund this project, but they're out there. The point is substantively the same, though. Yes, 50% match funding is what we're looking for.
Okay. All right, thank you. And this would be in conjunction with or to enhance or be there with the community garden projects and to and to start the restoration of downtown Main Street. That's about it from the Turtle Lot Fund, Trust Fund.
Kathleen, thank you so much. It's some encouraging news. Any questions? Questions, anyone? All right, Kathleen, thank you again. That was great. We'll move on to item 10, new business. EDC income account. I'm assuming that's Economic Development Commission.
Yep, and I'm up again. So before I dive into that, I'll just very briefly tag on to the end of the prior item. If anybody is interested in reading the proposal I put together for the trustees, I have some great light reading for you. Just let me know and I'll email it along. Just the ideas that those of us working on that project have been sort of developing since 2019. But that's the prior agenda item. So under this, pretty straightforward. EDC is the founding entity, I guess, of the Maker Faire that was referred to earlier. Alongside that, something we're now calling the 11th Village, which is going to be that micro retail 3-season amenity that we are planning for Riverside Park. Both of those things and the community garden do take in fees, and currently EDC has no means to accept them directly. So we are going through the Recreation Department through their website, which will continue because they have a website set up for registrations and that kind of thing. But then to keep it clean so that, you know, funds taken in on these programs sort of get parked and used to maintain those programs going forward is what we're after with having the income account. So again, pretty straightforward. Orla suggested that the best way to go through this process was to bring it to you guys. So that's just what we're here for tonight.
Orla, I think you're.
I'm sorry. My thought would be is we set up a special revenue fund. Similar, we've had some of them similarly in the past. I think Youth Center was one of the ones that most recently came to mind when I was doing some work.
Trails Committee.
Trails Committee. So that it's just basically it's handled in what we call our grants / special projects fund. Money comes in, money comes out. It just means that, you know, my suggestion with Tier was let's talk about this with the Board of Finance, make sure everybody's on board, and that's where we would filter the money in and out of for this project.
Yeah, so and as with the other, if you've got any questions about the programs themselves, I'm happy to answer, but that did seem like the tidiest, cleanest way to handle this.
So then, obviously, this would need a motion and a second and a vote to approve, yes? And so how would this motion go in order to accomplish what you're looking to accomplish?
My suggestion would be is to set up a special revenue fund for income and expenditures relating to blank, and I guess something as simple as that.
All right, so you said to fund blank. So what's the blank?
That's
EDC, EDC income receiving projects, I guess. I don't know what language works for your purposes, but it is for EDC programs that take in income for ongoing
How about
maintenance,
EDC
upkeep, whatever.
specific project? EDC specific projects.
Works for me.
So is this strictly an income account? Or is it an income and expense account?
I would lean on Orla for that. I mean, I would say that any funds required, so just to use the little 11th Village shops as an example, we're going to have 2 going into the season. We presume that we're going to have another 2 after the fiscal year rolls that we're going to be budgeted to construct. So one of the purposes of the income account is to fund, without having to dip into EDC budget directly, construction of future sheds until we reach the full share of the 10 that are planned. So
So
whether that
basically-
needs to be specifically expense or not, you know, I would defer to Orla on that.
It's going to have income and expenditure. And, you know, then down the road, when it appears that there is less expenses required for this project, maybe we can take a look at what we have for revenue on the fund at that stage.
Rob Mann, Board of Finance. So so does this kind of become like a sub budget to the Economic Development Committee? As far as, you know, something they take revenue in, and then they also obviously have expenditures, like if they're gonna build another building or do something else, but does it have to show through the Economic Development budget itself as a sub? No? Okay, I didn't know how that works. That was
No,
my
it doesn't.
question.
So this is Rob Work. So does that mean we'll have one income category for economic development and two expense lines? Or
Yes.
expense buckets, I shouldn't say lines.
Yes, yeah, that's the easiest way to describe it. 2 expense bucket, 1 revenue bucket.
It sounds more complicated. Why not 1 and 1? Why would we have?
The issue is, the hardest challenge is trying to carry these funds forward from fiscal year to fiscal year. There is going to be those general specific expenses that relate to EDC, but I think what we're trying to do with this is a perfect example of a kind of project that could work independently to the EDC general fund budget. Would be something similar to this, where it is income driven, it is income generating, but it does require expenses on the side of it. And, you know, it's been traditionally funded by the general fund up to now, but the going forward plan would be is that it can sustain itself. And there will eventually probably be more income coming in. And I'm sure there's plans for EDC down the road on how they would like to spend this. And no doubt they will be coming to the Board of Finance for bringing all of this information to your attention and if needed, necessarily your approval. But I don't foresee it that, you know, that pot of gold, in a sense, is untouchable by anybody in the Board of Finance or anybody in the town. I think it's more about making sure those funds can be carried over from fiscal year to fiscal year. Because as you know, anything that hits the general fund is gone by the end of the fiscal year.
So
Once your income comes in, it's gone. It's gone into the fund balance. And rightfully so, because that's the goal.
So how?
So,
why
Rob
do
Mann.
you- Sorry, Rob, just real quick follow-up. Sorry, Rob. Just a real
Go
quick
ahead.
follow-up.
Go ahead, Bob.
Sorry, why not copy paste what we do for other income generating departments? Why do something new or different unless there's a discrete advantage to do it? We have the transfer station takes in income and has expenses. The rec department takes in income and has expenses. Can you describe why don't we use what's proven and a process we already have?
Well, we actually do similar with the rec departments. All of the income that comes into the rec department does not go through the general fund. It goes through its own fund.
Okay.
So that'll give you an example.
And does the rec department have 1 income line and 2 expense lines?
Yes, it does.
So this isn't new.
It isn't
Really
new. And there's another couple of funds that we've used it for in the past too. There was a project, Youth Center, which was a fund that was managed by the rec department way back when. It was somewhat similar. It was income driven, but there was an in and out at the end of the day.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Rob, man.
Go ahead, Rob.
All good. That kind of cleared it up anyway. It's still gonna be income driven, but it's gonna go through the same department. That cleared it right up. His 1 bucket, 2 bucket, that did it.
Okay.
Simplicity, I guess. Thank you.
It's true.
Then coming back to the wording of the motion, this is a motion to establish an income/expense line item for purposes of the Economic Development Commission. Is that what this is?
For specific projects. Correct, Tira?
Yeah, it's meant to fund the specific projects that take in the income.
So instead of wording it as just the project currently that you're working on, you want to leave it so that if you have other revenue-driven projects, you can add to it, correct?
Yes.
So specific projects, I think, would be sufficient.
So then this is limited to revenue generating projects.
Revenue-generating projects.
So then it's a motion to create an income/expense line item for the use of revenue generating Economic Development Commission projects.
That sounds good.
And that's my motion. Is there a second? Miranda's got the second. Any discussion on this motion? Is there any need for this motion to be more precise, like where the line item will rest in the budget, or is just creating this line item sufficient and we delegate that decision-making to the finance director?
Well, you know what, one thing would be is, you know, we have, so the rec department will generally come to the Board of Finance if it has questions or it wants to know to the Board of Finance that specific projects are ongoing. The EDC can certainly do the same thing, I'm sure, right, Tira?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
So whether it's a periodic update on what's going on.
Sure.
Well, I'm just thinking about where this line item will live. Do we need?
It's going to live in the grant funds, which is where my special revenue funds are. It's not necessarily an income and expenditure that you see, but you can certainly see it at any stage.
Okay, so then is it fair to say, and I forget the exact wording of the motion, so I'm not going to try to repeat it, but to say basically, paraphrasing, creating an income/expense account, blah, 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 that will be located within the, did you call them the grant funds?
Grant special revenue fund.
The grand special?
Grant/special revenue fund.
Got it. And so then creating this line item, and that's where it will be located.
Yeah.
Got it. So Rhonda, are you okay with clarifying your second to basically describe where this line item will go, where it will live?
Yes, I am.
And I do that at the risk of being eccentric, but you know, we just had our auditors here with us this evening and they like to get pretty picky about stuff. And so I'm just thinking, you know, a belt and suspenders approach here works for me. Any discussion, any additional discussion on this motion?
Aaron, it's Rob. I didn't think I had any additional, but now that you asked those questions and Orla's answer, could Orla point to that fund today in the packet?
And I can show you where it is in the audit report.
No, I want to know where it is specific to this grant line in the packet that we have, and specifically how would I look at the rec area? If I could see the rec area today, then I should be able to see the EDC area tomorrow if I wanted to look at it. And I can't see it.
No, I don't. I typically don't provide you guys monthly reports except on the general fund. So there's two other very active funds that I work with. One is the capital projects funds, and a lot of that is the funds that are being transferred out as part of budget appropriations for transfers. And then there is the grant special revenue funds. Now, the auditors review it at the end of, I reconcile it at the end of every month, and it's grant money coming in, it's special revenue money coming in. It's, you know, for example, last year, EDC was very active with their NIPS collecting project. That was in that fund also because we received donations. Let me see, and I call it my 9994 fund. That's the numeric number in my mind. And if you guys would like, I can give you an update in next week's meeting on where both of those funds stand. It might be something, when you see something tangible and visible, it might make better sense to you.
It's not necessarily that I'm asking for the update. I just, if it's a revenue, I thought we would have seen it in the revenue buildup, and it's not there under rec. It's not there under grant special revenue fund. And what I'm hearing is that the reason you want to do this is so that it's not, whatever excess is there at the end of the year, it doesn't roll out. You want it to carry forward.
Yes, I'd like to carry forward so they can spend it as needed.
You know, Aaron, I don't have any burning issue over it. It just seems like a workaround. And if we're comfortable with the workaround, we've done it in other areas, then we do it. If it's something we should shy away from, then we should find a different way to manage it.
Any other discussion on the motion? Any other discussion? All right, hearing none. And we're creating an account as opposed to spending money. I know typically when we make actual spending dollar decisions, we go around the table. Usually when we're not doing that, we just do a, I forget the term, the parliamentary term that's used for that, but just, an all in favor, anyone opposed. So we're not spending money here, we're creating an account. So I'll just ask, all in favor of approving this motion, signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? So I only heard ayes. I didn't hear any noes. I didn't hear any abstentions. So I'm assuming that means it's 6-0. If I'm misreading anyone, let me know. But my impression was it's 6-0. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
So we'll move on to budget workshop. And we've got a little under a half an hour. We may not cover a lot of territory, but we'll see how far we get. I'm going to reach down and pull out my copy of the budget from last week. And I have a yellow sticky on page 31, page 30, yeah, page 31. Town council, I believe that's where we left off. Does anyone have any questions or comments about town council?
I assume the savings are because of the HR person.
Good question.
Amy, you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I'm happy to. As far as legal labor is concerned, we had allocated, if I'm correct, and Orla can correct me if I'm wrong, we had allocated a lot more because we believed we would be using the attorney a lot more with the negotiations. However, we handled the negotiations with the union minus the union representative and minus the town attorney, which would have been Duncan Forsyth. So that saved us some money, and our contract is good for another 3 years. So that's where you'll see the majority of the savings. We added some additional funds for zoning because they tend to have a lot of questions for our land use attorney. Additionally, there's been some questions from our wetlands agent for the attorney. So we wanted to make sure that she had some funds that she could use to consult with attorneys as necessary. So that major change on our side is really just because we didn't use the amount of money that we would have used in the past to conduct union negotiations.
So it's not due to the HR person.
In our case, no.
No.
Thank you.
Any additional thoughts or questions related to town council? All right, we'll move on to probate court. Looks like not much of a change here. Any questions or comments? We'll move on to Town Hall Municipal Building. Questions here? Looks like we're shifting evening custodian, building maintainer, and collapsing it into maintainer / custodian.
Correct.
Is that maintainer / custodian now going to be taking care of what otherwise would have been picked up by cleaning services?
Yes, that's correct. We do still have some money in cleaning services, right, Amy? I think we were putting some money in for carpets, et cetera.
Yeah,
Correct, correct.
4,000.
Bear with me 1 second, guys. I just got to go into this document a little bit different. Okay, I'll go back to where we were. I'm just going to stop sharing for just 1 second, okay?
It's okay.
I will say one of the items, this is Amy St. Ange again. One of the items under internet, you'll see a decrease. This is because we'll be utilizing the same internet provider that the school currently uses. It's a huge cost savings to the town. So happy to be switching over within the next month or two. This will also give us large enough bandwidth so that we'll be able to do live streaming directly from the town hall. Currently, we don't have enough bandwidth to do that. So, that's a positive change in this you'll see on these line items.
That's great. Does that have anything to do with the reduction in telephone cost? I know sometimes
No.
companies will do telephone over the internet, so I didn't know.
So we do voice over IP for our telephone, but we actually, for this budget purposes, we broke out, internet and telephone used to be on the same budget line. So we've broken them out now. You see our actual for 2020 was broken down here. The budget is in for 18 for the current year, but it is broken down into these $2 amounts. And the estimate is actually higher than what we budgeted. So we budgeted 18 last year, but in reality, we're going to come in higher than that. But based on our changes to the internet and the reduced cost, our telephone is likely to be a little bit more than what it is this year, but that's our savings are going to be on the internet side.
Any questions from anybody else?
I got one quick question. This is Jim with the, this is for Orla. Orla,
Yeah.
as far as your hourly employees in the town hall,
Yeah.
what's the average increase that you're trying to go with this year?
Number of employees?
In other words, like, for instance, I'm on page 35 right now, and they're saying that it's a 2.5% increase in wages. Is that pretty much the standard across the board?
Yeah, so Board of Selectmen proposed a 2.5% increase for non-union employees across the board.
Across the board. Okay, thank you.
Now, there was a couple of exceptions to that, but in general, pretty much everybody is 2.5%.
Okay, thank you.
Rob Works, not to be a stickler here, but how do you put an increase on a new position if it's new?
So it's actually the same person who's been doing the job. It's not a new person, it's the same person. So what we did was the hourly rate that we were paying this individual for carrying out the services of evening custodian and the building maintainer, they were pretty much 50% of his time in both areas. So we put both current hourly rates together and divided by 2. So that's where we got the 1750. And I did add the 2.5% based on he is a longer term employee. And he has been carrying out both jobs because we asked him to do so.
Thank you.
Anything else under Town Hall building? Anything else?
Just scroll down.
Uh,
Anything there?
Yeah, if there's nothing else for Town Hall building, we can go to Fire Marshal.
Okay. I'll scroll up at the top here first. There you go.
Questions on the Fire Marshal?
Help me out. What's the change in revenue on the fire marshal fees?
Oh, okay, what are we proposing? Let's see. I'm not sure. Is Jamie on the call?
I ask because what I'm seeing from, if I go back to FY19, we spent for the whole department $13,000.
Okay, let me just scroll down.
Now
from
we're
the
talking
start.
almost 50,000.
Yeah.
That's a giant increase. I mean, oh, wow. I mean,
Amy, would you like to talk on behalf of that?
I'm sorry?
I was just asking Amy if she'd like to talk on behalf of that because it doesn't sound like Jamie's on the call.
I can do my best. I'm trying to remember when Jamie actually took over as the fire marshal for town. But I will say prior to Jamie being in the position he's in, the town did not see any service. We had a fire marshal, but you know, Steve, that we didn't see any service.
Amy, I agree 100%.
Yep.
I
Right.
I'll do that for a second. But nevertheless, it's still costing the town triple. Almost.
I think he took
quadruple.
over in 2019. And we only started collecting revenue when Jamie came on board. I'm just checking the revenue side of things. So yeah, we started collecting revenue at the beginning of fiscal 1920, 1650. I'm just looking at page 8 of the budget, which has the revenue numbers. 1650 and 1920, and he's anticipating receiving 2,900 during this year.
So we're gonna get less than $3,000, but our costs have gone up $35,000.
Yeah, because we're getting a service now. Unfortunately, we weren't getting much for our $12,000. But we are required by law to have this service. And
Well,
Jamie-
I know we need the fire
Yeah.
marshal, but I mean, is there some way to offset this substantial, quite frankly, huge increase in cost?
I know he's been looking into different options. If I remember correctly, he did actually provide a PowerPoint presentation, which I'll forward to the members of the Board of Finance after the meeting. But if I remember correctly, one of the things that he has not been able to inspect up to now, which he requires, he charges for each of these inspections, is apartment buildings because of COVID. I think that's one of the ones that he's going to start looking into as soon as those restrictions are lifted. And each of those individual tasks is revenue driven. So
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Each of those individuals is what?
There's revenue collected for each of those individual tasks that he's required to do by law. So there's permits, there's inspections. I don't remember what the dollars are involved in it, but I'm pretty sure it was on the PowerPoint presentation that he
I mean,
provided.
obviously the collections are very small. If we're only going to collect $2,900 over the course of a year, that's.
Well, just to remind the board that it was a strange year. He wasn't not able to enter homes because of COVID. I wish Jamie was here so he could discuss the work that they have planned once restrictions are lifted.
Well, Amy, I understand it. It's next year you're budgeting 2,900, if I understood you right, Orla.
I'm sorry, I was just about to text Jamie. What was the question, Steve?
Next year you're budgeting a $2,900 income.
No, he's anticipating receiving 2,900 in this current year.
I'm sorry.
He budgeted 3,000, and just if I can find my budget in front of me, I can tell you what he anticipates for next year. If anyone's got page 8 handy, they'll probably be able to get it quicker than me. Yeah, he still is anticipating $3,000 next year.
3,000 is basically the same.
Sure.
Is there a chance we could take a look at helping this function pay for itself, or at least a little bit more for itself? I mean, now we have a secretary, or proposing to have a secretary in addition to the.
That's
Or-
actually not, can I correct? That's not an additional secretary. What we
Oh.
did is because Donna from the building office has been focused on doing stuff for the fire marshal, we pulled some of her salary from building office. So you'll see a reduction in the building office side,
Thank you.
and
That-
we applied it here.
Thank you very much. That explains that. No problem.
That probably explains a large part of the increase as well.
Yeah, it
So
is.
I'm glad you
That
pointed that
increase-
out.
it's almost $11,000. So the real increase is a little bit increase on the salary side of things. And also we did provide a telephone a cell phone to the fire marshal. And we've also budgeted an additional cell phone for the deputy. That's more of a, not necessarily having to use their personal phone for these calls, because sometimes they're not always pleasant people that are giving them a call, especially when they're carrying out regulatory requirements and enforcing the law. If I hear back from Jamie straight away, I'll tell you guys quickly, okay? Nothing so far. He may be.
If I'm the only one that has a question about this, then don't worry about it, but it's just a lot of money.
Okay. Well, I will happily share that PowerPoint presentation with you guys after the meeting.
I think I've seen it.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Rob, man, I just have a simple question. So prior to us having Jamie as our town fire marshal, we had a state fire marshal, which did multiple towns. Does Jamie just do Thompson?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a difference too, I'm sure, because the other fire marshal was, basically part-time and couldn't cover everything and did multiple towns.
He did multiple times. I don't think he was a state fire marshal. He was a fire marshal in Putnam, if I understand right.
Okay.
I think you're right. He might have done Putnam and Thompson.
Rick Hayes was the prior fire marshal, if I remember right.
I believe we shared a fire marshal with Woodstock.
For a
That's,
while we did. No, I think I was a building inspector.
oh, is that what it
But you
was?
might be right. We did an agreement with the other towns, so that one could help the other one out, if I remember.
Any other questions or comments on fire marshal?
My one comment, Aaron, would be in support of some of Steve's questions. I think it would be worthy to look back at the revenue side. I mean, if the reason for it being lower was because of COVID and not getting into apartments, then there's rationale that maybe that could improve and help offset some of the rising costs.
I took taken out some notes. I'll reach out to Jamie about this, okay?
I mean, we're saying that the income doesn't even cover the travel and telephone.
No, it won't. Not by what we are anticipating receiving for revenue with this budget. I think it's a tough one because, we know we need it. We know we're getting it now. And yes, it's costing us more money.
Yeah, I understand that we're it's a service that we have to offer. We don't have an option. It makes the safety of apartment buildings, the safety of new structures. It's really not an optional thing. I know we're trying to look at this budget item as a business entity in some way, shape, or form, because we want to see revenue and the money going out. But it's just one of those things that I think that you don't have an option with. It's safety related and it has to happen.
True.
Rob, surface, I guess I agree with the comment overall, but for specific services that aren't applied across the town, if you own apartment buildings and you need an inspection, I think it's reasonable that you pay for that. Now, it may not be a one-to-one with expenses to revenue, but no different than some of the other areas in town where I think we need to be a little bit more cognizant of what's coming in versus what the service is costing us. I think that's kind of where Steve was going. Not that it has to one wash the other, but I think we need to be careful in those areas.
I agree. It's an essential service. I don't dispute that, but maybe we could cover a little bit more of the cost, as Rob, as you're mentioning, with the income. I don't remember the fees, but the fees were so modest. I don't think it covered the gas to go to visit these places. You know, it was, again, I don't want to quote something I don't remember exactly, but it was so modest. It was.
I don't know why, but for some reason, I remember last year him wanting to or actually doing it, increasing the fees on the apartment buildings. Because I remember they were very, very low and they weren't even worthwhile, basically. I think they got raised last year.
Yeah, it does ring a bell. You're right, Robman. There's a comment from Melinda here. I'll read it out to you guys. Jamie also has to do the inspections at all schools, monitor all drills, and is part of our safety team. So I'm unclear as to whether the fees that we charge are mandated by the state or not. That's definitely a conversation I'll have to have with Jamie. I just don't remember.
Any other questions or comments on fire marshal? So we're going to revisit fire marshal on the revenue side, yes?
Yes.
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 And so maybe Dottie, if you can add that to our list of bullet homework items, that would be great. We'll move on to fire departments. Couple of things that jump out at me is budgeted 20 to 21 grant special fire and ambulance 385, selectmen proposed 325, so that'd be a reduction of 60 from last year. And but then adding in the increasing the firefighter refund.
So there's also an additional move here that was proposed by the Board of Selectmen in transferring the appropriation for the ambulance side to the transfer fund. You guys seeing what I see right now? I just highlighted in yellow. This means that they would, instead of writing them a check on the 1st of July or when the budget passes, we would appropriate the funds as needed for specific projects. So that's why you see a difference between 385 last year and 325 this year. And with regards to the tax abatement, I know Amy's been working on a lot of different changes there. Amy, did you want to talk on that behalf?
Certainly. One of the things that the Board of Selectmen discussed last week, and we are waiting to have a draft ordinance created, is that next year, what we'd hope to switch over to is an exemption for the firefighters that qualify. So the exemption would work very much like the veterans tax exemption. It would be an exemption off of their total real estate tax assessment. So no checks would be distributed, and the firefighters and EMS people who qualified would not have to pay payroll tax on their earnings on their abatement. So it would kind of simplify the process. The assessment or the exemption would go through the assessor's office. And like I said, no checks would actually be distributed. It would be taken off of the assessment in January. So we would know well in advance what our income was and what the firefighters would be receiving. Whereas right now, the way it stands, we're kind of guessing. Last year, I think we appropriated 33,000 for it, was it 33, 35? And we're likely going to, we are going to go a little bit higher than that because we had increased the abatement.
So yeah, we're anticipating 50,000 in the current year. And in relation to what Amy is saying, the reason was to keep it in the budget here is to have that accounting transaction so we can continue to monitor the cost to the town of the firefighter refund / exemption. And our initial estimate would be approximately 60,000.
So then to clarify, this firefighter refund line item increasing by $25,000, this is under the sort of quote unquote old rules, so to speak. This is the
Yes. Because the exemption, the change to exemption still has to go to town meeting to be approved. So before we can switch over to that.
Wasn't there something at a recent town meeting that was approved that was for the firefighters?
That was the increase in the abatement.
That justifies the increase for the current year from 35 up to 50.
Yeah, just Rob Mann, Board of Finance. Yeah, they increased the amount that they could get off of their abatement, but at the same time, they still get a 1099 on that amount currently. So it's like they actually earned money. They have to pay taxes on that money. So the way they're trying to change this, maybe in a future ordinance to the new way, would make it so they don't actually pay the taxes on it.
Right, and so then it sounds to me like the answer is correct. This firefighter refund line item 522550, this is an increase in appropriation based on the old rules because we have not gotten approval on whatever the new rules are that we're hoping to do, which is just charge less tax as opposed to giving money back. This is under the old rules of giving money back and then giving people 1099s and they got to pay federal income tax on it.
Correct.
It sounds correct to you as well, Orla?
It does. We actually don't do a 1099. We have to process it through payroll. It's IRS rules.
Okay, but yeah, they have to pay tax.
But they pay tax on it twice.
Sorry, I had that wrong.
Yeah, no, it's the same source, whether it's a 1099 or a W-2, it's the same way. Either way, they're paying tax twice on it.
So Rob Wirtz here. So we just voted on the increase from 1,000 to 1,500, which would show us the 35,000 to the 50,000, right? Roughly 50%
Yes.
increase. Why go up to 60 now? We've just done a very nice increase, which I supported and many people did. In switching to the new exemption process, which is not what we're talking here, but it's in the plans, that's a zero impact to the town, correct, Orla?
Yes, it is.
Zero impact to the town, but a big but a really great thing for the firefighters. So it's the right thing to do. It has no impact on the town. This is showing an increase to the town. Why up 10,000?
So if I remember correctly, and Amy, you might be able to clarify this for me. So if you don't pay your taxes, you don't get a rebate. In this case, you would automatically be exempt from paying taxes.
Unless you were delinquent on your taxes, because then there will still be language. So if you have an outstanding bill that hasn't been paid, you will not qualify for the exemption still.
you need to be in good standing. So should it be 50 for next year? Someone decided to make it 60. What was the rationale?
My recollection was, and I'd have to look back over my notes, it's in relation to the fact that, you might have a delinquent tax, but some people may not, they're getting rebate on their current year's taxes. So they may be current in prior years, but they have chosen for whatever reason not to pay their taxes. So by not paying their taxes, they're not going to get a rebate. But if they're current with their taxes through the end of prior year, there is no change of hands of money in the current year. So they would be eligible for the exemption. Does that make sense?
That was pretty complicated.
We have a comment below from Justin Young somewhere.
Oh,
Yeah,
Sorry,
it says
Bob.
it can vary based on certifications and if you live in town or have taxable assets. That's true. That's always applied to the case though. The classifications are based on whether you're a lifetime member, depending on how many calls you made during the year, you have to have a minimum amount. And it also relates to, you're only going to get an exemption or a rebate on whatever you're liable for, are you paid?
But my thought is, Rob Warge, are you asking why we even have that in for this year?
No,
If we're
no,
potentially going to switch over to the exemption, or?
No, I'm asking,
Okay.
we just agreed to raise it 50%, 35 to 50 in year. That was fine. That just went through. Why go from 50 to 60? We just increased it, very nicely a few weeks ago. So I'm just asking, why go from 50 to 60? I understand why we went from 35 to 50. I don't see the rationale of going from 50 to 60.
I'm just checking to see if I have any notes. I don't, but I think my rationale, if there's other members of the Board of Selectmen on the call that can chime in too. My recollection was there's likely to be more people that are eligible for it with an exemption versus a refund.
I do know at this point, Rainey Moran had come to me with this year's, with the people that were eligible this year, and he hadn't looked through it to see, because sometimes people might be eligible for the 1,500, but maybe they only have a car. So, and their car taxes are only $400. In that case, they're only going to get a check for what they've paid, which would be $400. However, when he received all of the requests or all of those people that were eligible within the fire departments this year, the total came up to $86,000. And I hesitated to share that because he hasn't gone through to see who's delinquent, who only has a car that isn't going to actually receive the full 1,500. But as of the other day, every single person that qualified for the full 1,500 had totaled $86,000. I know it's going to come down from there, but at this point, I don't know how far it's going to come down.
Well, I would thank you, Amy. I just recommend that we put this in a parking lot until Rainey can do that, because it sounds like the answer is we went from 50 to 60 because we think 50 is not enough and we undershot it. But we need to.
So let's see what Rainey comes in with. Let's see what it comes in with for this year.
And that's okay. I mean, it's not great that we undershot it, but at least we know why we want to go from 50 to 60.
There's also another comment from Justin. I think the reasoning was if there's an increase in person applying for it. So maybe the anticipation is a lot of newer members to town who would be eligible for the first time, maybe. That could be the reasons why. I think it was, the general consensus was there was likely to be an increase, and I think we rounded it to the increase being 20%. But I did put a box around it because we can certainly come back to it at another time.
So this is an actual expense as opposed to a reduction of income.
So it will be a reduction of income, but the reason why we put it in there for, I think Amy mentioned already, this has to go to town meeting. We're in the budget process now in the month of March. I'm not sure what the timing would be on the town meeting. I can't imagine it'll go in May when we have our annual, but either way, if it doesn't go to town meeting, I got to get it into the budget somehow.
If
Um,
it is an exemption, is it going to be an expense or just a reduction of income?
It'll be a reduction in income. It will
But
be a
will not, this will
reduction.
be
in-
zero.
We can determine, I can work with Rainey with regards to how best to determine how to record that. But there, I think we also mentioned there's other exceptions. We'll probably handle it the same way.
My fundamental question is. if
It's
it
a
is an
reduction in
exemption,
revenue eventually. If it goes ahead.
If it goes ahead, which sounds, we'll see, but let's assume it does, this would go to zero?
This would go to zero, but the revenue side of it will be reduced
Understand
by.
that's a different question though, but this goes to zero, okay.
Yeah.
So this assumes that we don't get the exemption.
Well, this is the timing of it.
But that's the assumption. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And if things change, we'd end up doing a budget transfer next year. If we ended up approving this a budget, that would be something that we would discuss based on a change of circumstances to when we approve the budget.
Aaron, I want to be mindful of the time, but if we're going to end here and not go back, I have a question on the prior page. It'd be a quick question.
Sure. Now, are you talking about the page above?
Yep, right there.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to clarify, I don't know if it's more of a question or a clarification, but we're showing 325 in column R versus 385 last year. But that 75 is moving out. So it's really not going down 60,000. It's going up 15,000, right? Because we have to take the 75 out of last year if we're going to take it out of this year. That 75 is not going away. That's going to show up somewhere else in the
Correct.
budget. So if we take it out of last year, we're really at 310 versus 325 of this year.
That's correct.
Okay, we went through it quick and it looked like it was going down, but in aggregate, costs are going up when you reconcile it that way.
It's a $3,000 per fire department increase.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Aaron, do you want a motion to adjourn, given that it's 9 o'clock?
I was gonna say, any other,
There's another chat in there, Aaron.
right, but, so Steve raises a good point. Any other questions or comments from Board of Finance members on this section of the budget at this time? So if it's okay with everybody, now this is a regular meeting. We still have one more item on the agenda. I should have put budget workshop after Board of Finance member comments. That's usually what I do. I didn't do that this time. I can't imagine that anyone has any speeches that they want to make, but nevertheless, if everybody's okay with moving on, we'll know where we left off. We left off on fire departments.
Right.
And we can even revisit discussion on fire departments if anybody wants to continue on next week. But for now, we'll move on to Board of Finance member comments. Is there any Board of Finance member who has a comment at this time? Hearing none, we'll move on to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Sounds like Rhonda's got the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Rob Words has a second. All in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? So this meeting is now adjourned. It's 9:10 p.m. according to my computer. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Great.